MeMonster.
Chapter 251, Central Africa, Orden's Underground Kingdom. A dark kingdom in Central Africa, inhabited by monsters. Here, Monster King Orden was receiving a report from his servant. "Is that so?" "I have no excuse to offer, Your Highness." Unlike his servant, the king appeared calm. He even seemed to be enjoying the situation. "We dispatched monsters to protect Yun Younghua, but they were not enough. You do not need to worry. Who could have known that this Black Lotus would interfere with our work? We only need to prepare better bodyguards next time." The king gestured with his hand. Immediately, a bipedal rabbit emerged from the darkness behind the throne. The rabbit had the body of a man and the head of a rabbit. The rabbit, called Gato, nodded without a word. He was Orden's second masterpiece, slower than Kurukuru, but by no means less powerful. "Protect our allies and crush Black Lotus." Gato's eyes glowed red at the king's command, thirsting for blood and death. He bowed once and disappeared as fast as the wind. "I apologize again, Your Highness." The monster servant, who had been watching the whole scene from behind, bowed low before Orden. Orden looked down at the servant and gave his next order. "We need to put aside the carrots and move on to the stick. Lead the monsters of Africa to the north. I shall present the disobedient humanity with their first calamity." "Yes, Your Highness." "You may leave now." The servant disappeared without ever showing his back. Monster King Orden slowly closed his eyes. The disaster his servants would bring forth unfolded before him. This was only the beginning of Orden's brand ambition. "You must remain resolute, Your Highness." This was a memory from a distant past, in a world where the 4 seasons had vanished and only winter remained. The old servant urged me to make a decision, amidst the familiar cold. I looked down at him from the throne. "You must punish the louse and treacherous Kingspring." The old servant took advantage of my silence and continued. Other servants concurred, their voices resonating in unison. "Kingspring is a petty man without a sense of priority, who failed to consider the greater cause due to personal feelings." Thinking back now, Kingspring was a loyal servant. He wished to remain honest and moral even when the future of the continent hung on the balance. He wanted to punish a noble knight for plundering his people. But the knight was a sword master, destined to become an important asset in the war, whereas Kingspring was not. Raylene only wishes for the punishment of Kingspring. He is a knight who pledged his allegiance to the royal family. Please desert the traitor and embrace your loyal servant, Your Highness. I was 13 at the time. Despite my tender age, I was the queen, not a young princess, and I carried the responsibility of ruling my kingdom and seizing control of the war. I recalled the face of my very first servant. His pledge of everlasting loyalty and my acceptance of his pledge clashed in my mind. "Your Highness, please punish the louse and treacherous Kingspring." At that time, I thought I had no other choice. But was that really the case? Did I really have no choice but to abandon my most loyal servant? No, that wasn't true. As the queen, didn't I wish to abandon him? Didn't I secretly consider him useless, for he never managed to become strong? "I understand. I shall deprive Kingspring of any and all rights as of today. Lock him up immediately." Jin Sahyuk, who is no longer the queen of Plarion, woke up in her bed. The breath she had been holding back broke out. Jin Sahyuk gasped for air as she grabbed her chest. Her heart was beating violently. For a while, she stayed in bed trying to catch her breath before finally raising her upper body. Another dream of the past. Was her seal over her memories weakening? Or maybe she was just too shaken up by that damned Kim Hajin. The memory she had buried beneath her consciousness was leaking out like sand. Damn it. With another sigh, she realized her body was covered in sweat. She threw off her bothersome pajamas, then injected a portion of her magic power into her head. Only after she finished tightening the memory seal did she crawl out of bed. It was early morning. Jin Sa-hyuk was changing into her uniform when she suddenly looked at herself in the mirror. In the mirror was a woman who resembled the princess, but at the same time looked nothing like her. The strange sense of disharmony overwhelmed Jin Sa-hyuk. This is all because of that little shit Kim Hajin. Her confusion easily turned into anger. Jin Sa-hyuk cursed out loud at the thought of Kim Hajin. Just thinking about him made her want to puke. She again pledged to herself to end his life with her own hands. Jin Sa-hyuk grabbed her uniform roughly, carelessly put it on, and stepped outside her mansion. The first thing she saw was a cozy and beautiful garden. Soon she spotted a horde of mites approaching from a distance. "We humbly greet you, Commander Shin Shayuk." The knights were all dressed in level 7 A-Talos platinum armor provided by the Royal Knights. They were here to greet their commander. Princess Auraha's guard, Rachel, was also among them. Rachel spotted Jin Sa-hyuk and gave a small smile. "Good morning." "What's the princess's knight doing here?" Jin Sa-hyuk replied rather gruffly. Still, Rachel did not appear offended and said in a small voice, Fenrir will be coming to the castle." Jin Sa-hyuk's face twisted into a frown. By Fenrir she must mean Kim Hajin. But what's that got to do with me? Is she seriously still thinking I'm his fan? "Would you like to come along? You could, if you want to." "No, it's okay. I'm not going there." Jin Sa-hyuk shook her head. She had no reason to meet him, nor did she want to. And it was definitely not because he threatened her to never again appear before his eyes. She just didn't want to see him. Definitely. "There's no time. I'll be leaving to conquer the 9th floor soon." Hearing this, Rachel put on a regretful expression. "Then would you like me to deliver a message to him on your behalf?" Message? Even Jin Sa-hyuk couldn't decline this offer. Message. Jin Sa-hyuk looked at Rachel. "Ask him if he's ever heard of King Spring." No. "Prios." "Prios, you say?" "Yeah." Mentioning King Spring seemed too obvious. Instead, she chose to put forth the name that anyone who once blessed with the greens of Plarion would know. Prios, the name of her father. "Ah, wait. No, not that." But on second thought, that didn't seem like a good choice either. If I used the name of someone everyone knew, I couldn't narrow down the suspects. Is there a name recognized by only a handful of people? Jin Sa-hyuk pondered. Suddenly, her body flinched violently. "I met King Spring when I was little, and he knew all my secrets. That means Puharin." "Puharin, you say?" "Yeah." Jin Sa-hyuk nodded calmly. "Oh, so you were here." Suddenly, a cheerful voice called out. Jin Sa-hyuk and Rachel turned to where the voice came from. The Duchess of the West, Tomer, was there. "Long time no see, Knight Commander." "And Rachel." "Yes, it's very nice to see you." In contrast to Jin Sa-hyuk, who looked at Tomer with discontent, Rachel gave her usual distant yet benevolent smile. At first, Rachel was surprised to see Tomer here too. The Cube alumna had shown up unexpectedly and introduced herself as the Duchess of the West. But Tomer's explanation easily cleared up Rachel's confusion. Recently, the two had become very close. After all, Tomer was the first person who had told Rachel that Kim Hajin liked her during her Cube years. Tomer scanned the knights quickly. "Everyone knows that we're going to the 9th floor tomorrow?" "Yes, of course." The knights answered lively. Jinsayuk didn't like that they seemed to like Tomer more than her. Tomer looked at Jinsayuk and gave her a big smile. "Well, then I'll be leaving now. I'm scheduled to meet with someone." With a smile, Rachel used a return ticket. With Rachel gone, a competitive atmosphere filled the space between Tomer and Jinsayuk. I left Korea and arrived in England. I wasn't here for vacation, of course, but to meet Evandel. Invitation? Yes, anyone who is not a royal needs an invitation to enter. But when I tried to enter Buckingham Palace, a knight stopped me. England was one of the few countries in this world that acknowledged the profession called knight. Knights were similar to heroes, but different in that they were required to use swords and pledge allegiance to the royal family instead of the association or a guild. I don't have anything like that. Excuse me for a second. I remembered I could enter the palace without any restriction in the past when I was working as Fenrir. Well, I hadn't visited recently because I was busy climbing the tower. It wasn't too surprising that they forgot about me. I took out 2 ID cards from my pocket. One confirmed my identity as Geronimo Mercenaries Fenrir, and the other as the technical advisor to Essential Dynamics. Here you go. The knight solemnly received my cards. Essential Dynamics Technical Advisor Hajin Kim. But the moment his eyes landed on the card, all weight was lifted and his eyes widened. "Ah, I also contacted Rachel beforehand. You can ask her." Through Spartan, I had sent a note to Evandel, who probably delivered it to Rachel. "Go." The knight swallowed and carefully asked me. "By Rachel, do you mean—" "You know, the princess." The knight made a call right away. The call, which lasted about 3 seconds at most, the knight gave a polite bow and stepped aside. "Sir, I apologize for not recognizing you." "No, it's okay. Your Korean pronunciation is great, by the way. How long have you spoken Korean?" "I've been learning Korean at a Korean school since I was 3. "Ah, so they have something like that. Korea has English schools too." I patted the knight on the shoulder a couple of times and entered Buckingham Palace. I assumed the palace would be filled with servants and maids, but it was mostly empty to my surprise. Instead, ta-da-da-da, I heard the sound of someone running toward me. With a big smile, I turned to the side. The sound was, of course, from Evandel. "Hajin!" I picked up Evandel from the ground. With the child as light as a feather in my arms, I rubbed my cheek against hers. "I missed you." "Sorry, I came a bit late." I walked over to the reception room with Evandel in my arms. Surprisingly, the reception room was crowded with guests. Not only Ahain and Hayang, but also Hyen and Yunsung-ah were there too. I approached them, slightly confused. "Oh, Hajin, hi." "Hello." I nodded and sat down on an empty chair. I understand why teacher Ahain is here, but why are you, Yunsung-ashi?" I tilted my head questioningly. Yunsung-ah scratched the back of her neck in slight embarrassment. Just because I couldn't get any sleep. Suho is fighting the Demon King on the 30th floor." "Ah, right." These days, the news that Kim Suho was about to complete the Tower of Wish was everywhere. His journey lasted for roughly 3 years, or strictly speaking, 2.5 years. The media was only talking about Kim Suho at the moment. There was even a bet over whether he would succeed in defeating the Demon King. The excitement over Kim Suho right now was similar to that of the World Cup from the Earth I came from. In other words, Kim Suho was at the center of global attention. "Our stock prices shot up and investments have resumed thanks to him, but all I can do for him is pray," Yunsung-ah said with a bitter smile. Hajin, you smell nice." Evandel started to sniff me suddenly. At that moment, the door slid open, and the woman I hadn't seen in a long time appeared. Rachel approached us with a big smile. "You came." "I did. It's been a while." I stood up and welcomed her. She smiled happily and greeted me too. This was the first time we got together in a long time. We enjoyed our tea time together in the reception room. The main subject of our conversation was definitely Evandel. Ian Ha spoke of Evandel's accomplishments. In terms of quantity, Evandel was already even with Hajin, and in terms of quality, Evandel was very close to the 7-star level. Surprised, we complimented Evandel. Evandel squirmed with joy. Ah, right. Hajin, do you know Knight Commander Shin Jayuk by any chance? Rachel asked as if the question suddenly sprang to her mind. Shin Jayuk, I do know her. Why? Ah, it's nothing. She said she's your fan. My fan? That was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. While I was at a loss for words, Rachel continued. There's something she wanted me to ask you. What is it? She asked you if you knew Puharin. But everything started to make sense the moment I heard that question. I nodded, trying to suppress my laughter. Jin Sayuk was up to something, with Rachel serving as her stepping stone. So, do you know who Puharin is? I don't know. I think I've heard that name in a movie. He was an incarcerated royalty, if I remember correctly. As the original writer, I was fully aware of Jin Sayuk's backstory. What kind of princess she was, what she did to become the queen, and how exactly she met her end. Puharin was one of the members of the royal family who were incarcerated by Jin Sayuk, the 5th princess. However, because Puharin was carrying a devil seed, just banishing her ended up becoming the reason Jin Sayuk fell from grace. Though, truth be told, Puharin would have fallen even without Puharin. Puharin was destined to fall from the day Jin Sayuk became its ruler. After all, that was my official setting. A kingdom ruled by a young queen who was easily influenced by her vassals. Its end was obviously never meant to be good. Rachel tilted her head and asked, Incarcerated royalty?
Yes, you should tell her just that. But that's not really important. I quickly changed the topic. Didn't you say you want to install the essence barrier? We switched topics to the essence barrier. This was the reason foreign countries were recently sending diplomatic envoys to Korea one after another. Yes, not only that, but other defensive devices as well. Rachel's face was grim. It seemed England only had a little prospect of securing defensive devices. We're trying our best, but our connections don't extend far. China and the US are very aggressive. The order will be China, US, Japan, Germany. We'll probably come in 5th at best. Is that so? Yes, but that's okay. We have a few interests in the Tower of Wish that we can use for negotiations. Rachel said in a sullen voice. I wasn't surprised, since the English royal court's investments in the Tower of Wish were much more valuable than a mere barrier. But she couldn't simply ignore the complaints and anxiety of her people. The number of monster attacks had recently skyrocketed. In other words, she had few choices. No, there's probably no need for you to go that far. I gave a confident smile. In reality, Essence of the Strait already possessed enough facilities to manufacture ample essence barriers. Yuyan Ha was simply playing hard to get to attract more lobbyists. Don't worry. But England definitely needed an essence barrier. Kim Hajin, was about to exercise my right as the Essence of the Strait's technical advisor when the reception room's door swung open. Thud. A number of men in suits suddenly flooded into the room. Dad? Pardon? Dad? Father. Amidst our confusion, the men in suits started to introduce themselves politely and respectfully. The group was comprised of the Minister and Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, members of the House of Lords, and others. Their introductions were all directed to me, and I realized their intentions soon enough. As representatives of this nation, we would like to welcome Sir Hajin Kim, the technical advisor to Essence of the Strait. We have a sincere favor to ask you. Currently, the citizens of England are suffering from the greatest surge of monster attacks in history. The number of low-ranked monsters has increased dramatically in urban areas and... As expected, they were asking me to help them secure an essence barrier to place around England. On a side note, Hajin Kim was my alias. Excuse me, Hajin-si, what is Essential Dynamics Technical Advisor? Not only Rachel, but also Ahein and Yunsung-ah were oblivious to my position. The trio looked at me in a daze, and I let out a bashful smile. 4 hours later, Seoul, South Korea. Yuyenha's mansion, last night's events unfolded in my head once again. Dead? What do you mean? Chae Na-yoon, who screamed in misery, and me, who couldn't answer her despairing screams. Dead? So suddenly? He can't be dead. He can't be dead. It doesn't make any sense. He's really, really strong. I showed her the video. Kim Ha-jin was definitely in it. His body was cut in half by a being moving at an undetectable speed. His eyes lost all signs of life and faded into ash-gray color. It was death without a doubt. This can't be Kim Ha-jin. How? That's when Chae Na-yoon completely lost it. She tore her hair out, bawled like a child, hit the floor with her fists, and agonized over his futile death. Why? In the face of his death, Chae Na-yoon regretted everything she had ever done. I shouldn't have been so mean to him the last time we met. This wouldn't have happened if only I was smarter. Please, please, please. She wailed miserably. Watching Chae Na-yoon in pain, Hey, wake up. I said, Hey, wake up. No, wait, that's not right. Oh. A frown spread across Yuyenha's face amidst the nightmare. The tip of her nose and the space between her eyebrows trembled slightly as she continued to wander in her nightmare. Wake up. However, Kim Ha-jin didn't intend to let her suffer any longer. He tapped Yuyenha's forehead lightly. Yuyenha shook her head. Yet another nightmare seemed to have taken over her. Left with no choice, Kim Ha-jin infused his magic power into Yuyenha's head. Oh. A strange moan flowed out of Yuyenha's mouth. The stigma helped release her from her nightmare, and she finally opened her eyes. But her gaze was still fixed at the empty space above. You're finally up. Kim Ha-jin spoke, smiling. Yuyenha turned her head to the side and faced the man talking to her. Huh? She blurted a single exclamation in a daze. Kim Ha-jin was in front of her. Kim Ha-jin, who was already dead, was lit up by the sunlight. This must be a dream too, she thought. It's not like you to fall asleep during the day. Kim Ha-jin, who appeared too real, muttered. Still, Yuyenha didn't say a word. Suddenly, her eyes rolled back and she lost consciousness. She currently lacked the mental strength to deal with this kind of situation.
Chapter 252. Yuyenha lost consciousness the moment she saw Kim Ha-jin. Kim Ha-jin, of course, had no idea why, so he infused Stigma's magic power into Yuyenha once more. Yuyenha woke up, saw Kim Ha-jin, then fainted again. Kim Ha-jin infused Stigma's magic power into her again. After repeating this about 5 times, Yuyenha finally woke up. She still looked dazed, but at least she didn't faint at the sight of Kim Ha-jin anymore. I should be able to talk to her now, Kim Ha-jin thought. What's up with you? Yuyenha didn't answer. She just stared at him with watery eyes. Hello? Suddenly, her arms wrapped around Kim Ha-jin and she buried her face in his chest. It was a hug so tight it felt like she was trying to save the world. I'm sorry. Kim Ha-jin stood there flustered as Yuyenha apologized. She still thought she was dreaming, that Kim Ha-jin was just a hallucination, a ghost haunting her with guilt. Calm down. What are you even apologizing for? Yuyenha wanted to confess everything, even if it was only in her dream. Even though it was too late, even though she couldn't be forgiven, she wanted to tell Kim Ha-jin everything. So she did. She told him what she had hidden, how much it hurt her, and how much she regretted it. Everything. Sorry, it's all my fault. Yena spoke as she sniffled. "So you can leave now. I'll remember you for the rest of my life." Kim Hajin stared at her blankly. He still couldn't understand this ridiculous situation. He watched Yena make a fool of herself for 2 or 3 minutes. Then, he lightly slapped her cheek. "Ow! What the heck?" Yena blurted out after being slapped. Since she was asking why she was hit, it seemed she hadn't gone completely insane. "What are you doing?" "Eh?" "I said, what are you doing?" It was then that Yena finally realized something was wrong. She stood motionless, as if trying to process everything. Then, chap, she slapped her own face, hard. She put enough strength into it to shake the room, and her eyebrows twitched from the pain. "Ow! It hurts!" Seeing this, Kim Hajin spoke clearly. "I don't know what's going on, but I'm not dead. But thanks for letting me know." That was the final blow. Yena's face turned bright red. 2 hours later, I sat face to face with Yena. Her face was still hot with embarrassment. I could probably fry an egg on her face. Gulp, gulp. Yena gulped down a glass of water, then opened her mouth. "To think you had such a skill. I technically did die. It hurt a lot. But thank you for being alive." After saying that, Yena slammed her head down on the table. White steam rose from her head. I wasn't exaggerating. It really was steam, proof that Yena was using a skill. "What do I tell Nayun?" "Oh, right. What happened with Che Nayun?" Before I noticed it, Che Nayun had discovered the truth. I was worried for her fragile mind. Yena shot up and sent me a sharp look. "Nayun went back to the Himalayas." "Why?" "To get revenge." "Revenge?" "Yes, she said she'd take revenge on the humanoid monster and make her grandfather pay for his sins. She left before I could say no." "I see." I fell into thought. The situation seemed quite serious. "Do I have to go see her to show that I'm alive?" As I was thinking, Yena asked, misunderstanding my silence. "You still like Nayun that much?" "Huh?" I stared at Yena, bewildered by the sudden question. She had a somewhat bitter smile. "I didn't take you to be such a romantic. But don't worry, Nayun is a lot stronger than you think." "Can you stop saying weird things? You're wrong." Yena smiled bashfully and nodded. "Okay. And also, I want to apologize again about keeping that a secret." She was talking about the fact that Yu Jineng was behind the Kwang-O incident. It pained me slightly because of my synchronization with Chundong, but I wasn't furious. I can't say I'm not angry, but I couldn't react too differently from how Kim Chundong normally would for a topic as sensitive as this. Part of it was my conscience, but the main reason was synchronization. This strange number increased slightly every time I did something that wasn't aligned with Kim Chundong's wishes, but it was extremely small, so I didn't worry about it much. "I lived because of your father. It's not like he wanted to do what he did, and even if he did, that has nothing to do with you. There's no guilt by association in Korea." With that, I got up. A new smartwatch was on my wrist. Essential smartwatch code BLACK. A $17 billion luxury watch made with titanium and blood diamond. "I got the watch I wanted, so I'm leaving now. I made some food for you so you can eat it later." "Wait!" As I was about to leave, Yena stopped me. "Huh? What now?" "Why are you wearing a suit?" "Oh, this?" It was because I was going to visit Buckingham Palace. I was choosing my words when Yena walked up to me. "Your necktie is loose." She stood in front of me and placed her hands on my tie. She unfastened it, then tied it again. Meanwhile, I stood still. The scent of her hair made me feel strange. As the tie slowly formed a knot, tack, something heavy pressed against my chest. I glanced down. Yena had placed her forehead on my chest in the middle of tying my tie. Soon, a cold voice left her mouth. "Stay." "Huh?" "Stay." With that one word, she began to shake me back and forth. "Stay, stay, stay, stay." My head bubbled. This was the first time I'd been grabbed by the collar. Of course, it didn't last long. Yuyena kept her hands on my collar and headbutted my chest. "Stay in touch. You're our majority shareholder." Her voice sounded noticeably affectionate. I blushed. Feeling embarrassed, I scratched the back of my neck. Though I was busy, it was true that I hadn't contacted her for about 3 months. It wasn't strange that she thought I was dead. "If I have time." Excuses. Yuyena let go of my collar and finished tying my tie. "There." She tapped my shoulders a few times, then stepped back. She looked at the tie she tied and smiled in satisfaction. "Oh, right." Suddenly, she shouted as though she just remembered something important. "When you go back to the tower, do not look at the messages I sent you. If you do, our relationship is... Emergency news. African monsters are marching north. Monsters on other continents are also invading human territory. Civilians are advised to stay indoors while..." At that moment, a disaster warning popped up on my new smartwatch. My smartwatch wasn't the only device that received it. Yuyena's smartwatch and the smartwatches of people on the street outside the window were all beeping with disaster warnings. I stared at Yuyena silently. She was also looking at me. 21F, Card Kingdom. Finally.
Meanwhile, Shin Jong-hak was looking at a card he obtained on the 21st floor. Tremoring Echo of Light. Applied effect, 7-star. Effective, good. Applies the Echo of Light effect to a target weapon. Echo of Light. Echo attack. Attacks from the affected weapon will resonate like an echo. Attribute Infusion. Adds light attribute to basic attacks and echo attacks. A 7-star card that applied the light attribute to a weapon of choice. Furthermore, it made the weapon perform an additional attack through an echo. It was indeed worthy of its high TP cost. Hoo-hoo. Shin Jong-hak smiled as he held the card. He thought back to all the work he put in to obtain a source of light attribute. He used all his TP to obtain the light attribute, not luminous or shine attribute, and even made up for the TP he lacked with funding from outside the tower. "Oh, it's Tremoring Echo of Light. I saw that in the card encyclopedia. It's super rare, right?" Yi Young-han, who was standing next to him, chattered. Shin Jong-hak glared at him before putting the card away. Yi Young-han spoke again. "If you attack, it makes light attribute echoes, right?" "Shut up." "Do you even have a weapon to use it on? You'll need at least a level 8 weapon if you want to use it to its full potential." "I do, so shut up." Shin Jong-hak observed his surroundings carefully. Thankfully, he didn't see anyone who could be a thief, because the Kingdom of Cards was full of skilled pickpockets. Not even experts let their guard down for a moment. "Are you going back to the 26th floor?" Yi Young-han had many questions. The annoyed Shin Jong-hak glared at him, but Yi Young-han brushed off his glares. Shin Jong-hak had no choice but to sigh and accept his situation. "Yeah, I'm going back right away." "Ooh, as expected of Desolate Moon's boss." The position of guilds in the tower was like that of Earth. Essence of the Strait was number 1, while Frost Sanctuary and Desolate Moon followed close behind. The only difference was in the English Royal Court and Creator's Sacred Grace. The former had influence in the tower, while the latter was single-handedly carried by Kim Suho's achievements. "But even if you go up, you can't do anything, right? The Demon King is fighting Kim Suho." "He might not beat him." So you're going to challenge the Demon King next?" "That's right, because I'm much stronger than Kim Suho." Shin Jong-hak nodded with confidence. "As expected of the Emperor's bloodline." At that moment, a silvery voice reached the two heroes. Happy to hear someone praising him, Shin Jong-hak turned his head. "Nice to meet you, Jong-hak-shi. It's been a while." There, Shin Jong-hak saw Jin Se-yun, smiling as brightly as ever. Shin Jong-hak was happy to see her, but he nodded without revealing his feelings. "Yes, nice to meet you too." "Bah! Bah!" At that moment, a flash of light flared up in the distant sky. The three heroes looked up simultaneously. "Suho, she must be fighting," Jin Se-yun muttered. "Do you think he can win?" Yi Young-han asked. "It'll be hard," Shin Jong-hak answered. Jin Se-yun laughed at his cute jealousy, but Shin Jong-hak pouted at her snicker. "Bah! Bah!" Another flash of light spread out in the sky like a spiderweb. "Must be intense. Damn, what a show. How can their magic power undulations reach all the way down here? By the way, what happens if Kim Suho wins? That won't happen, so don't worry."
It wasn't just Shin Jong-hak, Lee Young-han, and Jin Se-on who were looking up at the sky. Everyone in the Card Kingdom was the same. 30. The final floor of the Tower of Wish. How Kim Soo-ho was fighting the Demon King, whether he could defeat him. Everyone both inside and outside the tower was wondering the same thing. Kim Soo-ho slowly opened his eyes. A crushing pressure and hot pain pressed down on his body. Overcome with pain, his body didn't move. The only thing he could do was endure. "You lost again." A soft voice rang out nearby. Kim Soo-ho turned his head. The witch was standing there. Next to her were his equipment and Mistelstein. The king used 50% of his power and won with 73% of his energy remaining. You used all of your power and lost. The witch reported the results like a game summary. Your equipment has been repaired. You now have two choices. You can give up or try again. Again. Kim Soo-ho spit out a single word. But the moment he did, a wave of pain swept through his body. Kim Soo-ho coughed up blood and continued. I'm trying again." His fight against the Demon King ended in complete defeat. He challenged him 3 times and lost all 3. The Demon King was that strong. His strength was something Kim Soo-ho had never imagined or experienced. But this only made his conviction burn brighter. If he couldn't defeat the Demon King, then he knew he couldn't stop the calamities to come or protect his new home. His determination as a knight still burned inside him. The witch stared at the knight silently. After a long moment, she dropped her head and muttered softly, "I will give you 4 days to recover." With that, the witch left. Kim Soo-ho didn't despair, even while writhing in pain. He wasn't scared of the difference between him and the Demon King. He still had many chances. He refused to give up. Every muscle in his body screamed in pain. However, Kim Soo-ho forced himself up, breathing heavily, covered in blood and sweat. When he turned around, feeling a strange gaze, "Kahoom!" he saw the witch staring at him.
Seoul, Korea. Rooftop of a nameless building. Emergency report. African monsters are marching northward. There are at least 30 million of them, but that is the smallest estimate. This isn't a naturally occurring phenomenon. Orden, the self-claimed Monster King, has taken responsibility for the phenomenon, adding to the shock of the public. Oh ho! Jin Se-hyuk shook her head and turned off her smartwatch. She had returned to Earth after a long time in the tower, yet the world was in chaos. Nothing interesting was happening, and people were only talking about monsters. Orden. She remembered Belle mentioning someone by that name, that a monster in Africa had a grand aspiration of conquering all of Earth. But Jin Se-hyuk didn't care about a mere monster. She was only worried about what she heard from Rachel today. Hajin called Puharin an incarcerated royalty. He said it was from a movie. What is it called? Chewing on a leaf like a cigarette, Jin Se-hyuk mulled over Rachel's words. Kim Hajin knew Puharin, someone he shouldn't know. That was why Jin Se-hyuk left the tower. She couldn't stay in Krevon. It was driving her mad. Jin Se-hyuk looked up at the sky and sighed. Then she muttered as if talking to thin air. "Come out." Her words were vague, but she was clearly speaking to someone. That someone revealed himself soon after.
Tack. Light footsteps rang out. No one knew whether he came from above or below. Jin Se-hyuk stared in that direction. A human-light rabbit was standing there. "Are you a rabbit or a human?" Jin Se-hyuk's voice reached Gato. Gato glared at Jin Se-hyuk and replied with another question. "Young human, I can feel that you're strong. Are you Black Lotus?" Puh! Jin Se-hyuk sneered. Could these idiotic monsters not even tell sexes apart? So much for being humanoid. Don't you know that Black Lotus is male? I heard he's completely black. My hair is navy, idiot. It looks darker because it's night. Hearing this, the rabbit unleashed magic power. His magic power compared the image of Black Lotus with Jin Se-hyuk. When the result came out, Gato nodded. Then I have no business with you. My target is Black Lotus. With that, Gatto turned his back. The monster rabbit didn't plan to fight. As a monster created solely for battle, he had a strong desire to fight, but he had a command to follow: protect his king's allies and kill Black Lotus. Oh? Jinsei Huck sneered at Gatto. A fierce wind blew, and her smile disappeared. Oi, rabbit! She stopped Gatto. She stood up, dusting off her hands. Gatto turned around silently. She glared at him and made a twisted smile. Dark magic power burned around her. With whose permission are you looking for that bastard? She spoke in a relaxed manner. However, her magic power was anything but relaxed. But Gatto had no reason to fight. He wanted to get away from this place. Completing his king's mission was his first and foremost goal. But to his surprise, he couldn't escape the rooftop. A wall was preventing him from leaving. Gatto stepped back, confused. He was currently trapped in the third wall, something that was neither a barrier nor a spell. This strange ability was part of a new gift Jinsei Huck awakened called reality manipulation. Older sis here is feeling like total shit today. Jinsei Huck laughed quietly and stared at Gatto. Gatto instinctively realized he had no choice but to fight. This way, his actions would not disgrace his king's orders. So why don't we have a go until one of us dies?
Chapter 253. Jin Sahayuk observed the rabbit's movements. Dark demonic energy gushed out of him like steam. At the same time, his fur, which was originally gray, slowly turned black. His crimson eyes, now stark against his blackened body, stared straight at Jin Sahayuk. She watched the monster transform as she silently expanded her domain. The third wall, which had stopped Gato from escaping just moments ago, now grew to encompass the entire area around them. What is this? This magical phenomenon startled Gato. He had never seen anything like it before. Jin Sahayuk gave an arrogant smirk instead of an answer. With her domain fully formed, she was confident the monster stood no chance against her. Don't make a fuss and just die. Jin Sahayuk spoke with her arms crossed. Gato became infuriated by her arrogance. The only being allowed to act arrogant in front of Gato was the king. Grrrr. Gato's demonic energy swirled like a storm, leaving thin scars across Jin Sahayuk's cheeks. For my king! Looking at Gato charging toward her from what seemed an unreachable distance, Jin Sahayuk declared, I'm also a king. The space itself responded to her exalted voice. Iron bars shot up from the ground where Gato stood. He jumped to avoid them, but chains suddenly appeared and flew toward him. Gato spun in midair to shake the chains off, then darted toward Jin Sahayuk again. So, consider yourself lucky. Only then did Jin Sahayuk unfold her arms. Magic power gathered around her now freed hands. The concentrated magic did not shoot outward, but instead restructured her domain. The king's domain changed shape according to the king's wishes. The ground was pulled apart and raised aloft to form fractals, which then changed into sharp blades and rushed toward Gato. Crack! However, her fractals failed to penetrate Gato's hide. Gato smirked. Surprisingly, so did Jin Sahayuk. Before Gato could even contemplate the meaning behind her smile, the fractals clinging to his hide exploded. The blades shattered into pieces, and Gato shrieked in pain amidst the burning heat and smoke. Enraged, Gato released his demonic energy. The swirling energy melted the fractals and cleared the smoke. Then Gato pushed himself up into the air. His body gave off an ominous flow of demonic energy. Every blood vessel in his body filled with it. Come! Gato jolted forward with a single cry. The shockwaves from his feet reverberated in all directions. This time, even the king's domain wasn't enough to stop him. In a flash, Gato arrived in front of Jin Sahayuk and swung his fist at her. Ugh! Jin Sahayak used her arm to guard herself, but her bone was much weaker than Gato's. Her arm snapped in half like a daikon. Immediately, Gato's kicks followed, carrying the strength of a rabbit's legs and crushing the lower half of Jin Sahayak's body. Ugh! It felt like an atomic bomb had exploded inside her. Her eyes widened in shock, and a waterfall of blood spurted from her mouth. She had made a lethal mistake by allowing the rabbit to come near her. She never should have let this monster attack her at close range. But how could a mere rabbit possess such strength? But it was too late to ponder such questions. With a radiant smile, Gato placed his hands around Jin Sahayak's neck and crack tore her head off. The body without a head went limp and fell to the ground. There was no scream, no resistance. Gato smiled in satisfaction, Jin Sahayak's head in his hand. It's over, Gato thought. However, a beast is nothing but a clown in my domain. A voice descended from above. Startled, Gato quickly shifted his gaze to the sky. Jin Sahayak was standing there, looking down at him with arrogant eyes. That was an interesting show, clown. You damn little human! Gato exploded his magic power in fury. Graaah! Jin Sahayak didn't seem to care that the explosion had damaged parts of her domain. Tss, tss, tss. A spark of light emerged from the fake corpse of Jin Sahayak that Gato had crushed. The moment Gato turned around, the spark transformed into chains and wrapped around his neck. At the same time, spears, swords, arrows, and axes flew into the sky. The weapons all pointed at Gato. Now, it's time for punishment. Jin Sahayak waved her hands lightly. Her soldiers immediately responded. The weapons poured down toward Gato like hail. When they reached him, each presented a distinct kind of death. Explosion, penetration, freezing burst, necrosis, asphyxiation, paralysis, amputation. It didn't take long for the monster rabbit to collapse. Different kinds of wounds covered his body. Death was just around a corner, and Gato was barely breathing. Jin Sahayak slowly walked over to him. I'm the one who will kill Black Lotus, she said, holding a sharp sword. So go tell your king, a smile spread across her face at the sight of the enfeebled foe at her feet, to not interfere. Chewing! The blade penetrated Gato's heart. Gato gasped for air a few times before finally meeting his end. At that moment, Jin Sahayak's face stiffened. Her king's domain was released, and she fell to the ground. That was close, she thought. There was no strength left in her body. This was clearly magic power exhaustion. She had thought humanoid monsters would be weak, but they were much stronger than she had expected. She closed her eyes with a sigh. The face of a certain someone sprang up beneath her sealed eyelids. Irritated, Jin Sahayak opened her eyes again. Damn it! Kim Hajin! Kim Hajin! Kim Hajin! She couldn't stop thinking about his name. How do you know? Jin Sahayak wanted to ask. She was dying to ask. Just how did he know Paharan? She resented herself for not being able to confront him. Not long ago, he had driven her to the verge of death. She had begged her for her life. Every time she recalled this traumatic memory, her body trembled violently. She was angry at herself for being so afraid of Kim Hajin even after all this time. She closed her eyes in embarrassment. Jin Sahayak blacked out. This time, Kim Hajin did not appear. Monsters around the world began to grow listless, turning more violent and aggressive. It wasn't just the 30 million strong army of monsters marching north from Africa. There was nothing I could do in the face of the sudden monster mayhem. I simply hurried to the Essential Dynamics underground workshop near the South Sea, along with Yu Yun Ha. Take whatever you need. The workshop was filled with incredible machines, drones worth hundreds of millions of won each, stealth aircraft similar to the F-22, small tanks, and even high-tech bodysuits found only in movies. What lay before my eyes was undoubtedly the epitome of magic and science. All of these are your inventions?
Yes, we developed them but never announced them to the public. These days, a lot of people are holding us in check, and they definitely aren't going to allow our patent applications to pass. We'd only give others the chance to steal our ideas by making them public, so we figured it would be better to keep them hidden. My gaze shifted to the assault drones and stealth aircraft. I could make use of them both. Yu noticed my interest and remarked, "The code name for this drone is ESX-039. It comes with a pocket enchanted with space expansion magic, so it can hold up to 5,000 magic bullets. The AI also fires the bullets in the most efficient way." Really? I could enhance machines I own up to 4 times. First with Equipment Link, then Random Consolidation System, then Aether, and lastly, Algorithm. With these, even the simplest gun could become as powerful as an artifact. I'll just take these drones for now. These drones would probably become a great addition to the team. I placed my hand on top of the 4 drones, then activated Equipment Link, one of the functions my laptop gained when it updated back in the day. Equipment Link, 5-streak consolidation. Links any machine owned by Kim Hajin to Kim Hajin, max up to 7. The linked machine can only be controlled by its owner. The owner is given the right to control the linked machine any way he pleases. The output of linked machines will increase by 15%. I linked myself to all 4 drones. Even without a power source, the drones moved as I commanded them. Oh, wow! Did your gift advance by another level? It's not only guns that are responding to you now. I handed the Dwarven supercar to Yu. "What's this?" "I'll lend it to you in exchange for the drones." "Pardon?" I personally unlocked the card for Yu, who was clearly confused. With a poof, the Dwarven supercar appeared in the air. "Oh! Learn to ride it. With this, you can go from Busan to Seoul in 10 minutes. It can even fly across the sky. Do you really expect me to ride something so conspicuous? You'll be fine at night." I infused my magic power into the vehicle. Thanks to the old enchant effect, the snowmobile turned transparent and blended into the darkness. It won't be noticeable at night, but if you're still concerned, use the Cape of Transparency. They're pretty common these days. I wouldn't say they're common. Effective goods from the tower are all expensive. Anyway, thank you. I'll use it well. Yu-Yinha's eyes twinkled as she sat down in the Dwarven supercar's driver's seat. She learned how to drive in the tower, so she should be able to control it with ease. I took my mind off her and turned my smartwatch back on. 30 million monsters are heading north. People living in Western Europe have been urged to evacuate the area. Monsters are rampaging throughout the entire world, not only Africa. Governments have declared a state of emergency. And the story had obviously moved on to the Orden arc. With this incident, humanity would lose at least Africa and the entire Middle East, as well as the Iberian Peninsula, Greece, Italy, and other countries near the Mediterranean, plus Ireland and Scotland. But this was only the beginning. Oh, and also, I looked back. Vroom, vroom. Yu was flying in the air on the Dwarven supercar. What happened to Essence Barrier? Ah! Yu hurried back down. We shipped them to other countries already. I didn't make as much as I could have, but I figured now wasn't the time to chase after money. I sent one to England a long time ago, too. Good, then I'm leaving now. Don't follow me. Okay. I stepped into the elevator with the drones by my side. Yu looked at me and said, "Oh, and I'll clear things up with Nayun." "How?" "I'm thinking about telling her that you were seriously injured, but recovered miraculously." Yu smiling face appeared behind the gap between the wall and the elevator door, but the door shut before I could answer her. I was now back above ground with the drones. Spartan clung to my side. A view of the ocean by the workshop entered my eyes. I began to contemplate, my gaze fixed on the wavering darkness above the southern sea. The last segment of my story was about to begin. Soon, humanity would form an expedition team against Orden, and not long afterward, Earth would start to transform into the demon realm. The contamination would start from both poles. And after that was a future I didn't know. Of course, I did have a tentative idea for how to end the story. In the final arc, Jin Sa-hyuk would make a deal with a devil, equivalent exchange.
She would obtain peace for her homeland, Akatrina, in exchange for transforming Earth into the demon realm. Jin Sa-hyuk would try to destroy Earth using the devil's power before ultimately being defeated by Kim Soo-ho and perishing. Jin Sa-hyuk. But of course, the remake shouldn't end so easily. Ultimately, Jin Sa-hyuk was the one who held the most important key to the story. With a deep sigh, I began to think of Jin Sa-hyuk, a wounded princess who ascended the throne of a fallen kingdom only to meet a painful death in despair. I would have to meet her someday and decide whether to kill her or not. In the darkness of the seaside, I took out 2 communication letters. These were effective goods I brought from the tower, used to communicate regardless of location. They could also be recycled by writing and erasing. I could probably deliver one to Jin Sa-hyuk by asking Rachel, "Hey, drone, deliver this to Rachel in England." I handed a communication letter to one of the drones. The drone disappeared quickly into the sky. Hero Association, Temple of Justice. The Hero Association's most influential department, Temple of Justice. A meeting was taking place in the office of the heroes revered by all. For the first time in a while, all 12 members of the Temple of Justice had gathered. An astounding amount of jewelry was discovered in the private vault of Yoon Young-hwa, whom Black Lotus assaulted. Chairman Pak Han-ho put up the first item on their agenda. This was originally their most important topic before even more urgent matters emerged. First, Black Lotus. The overall appearance of Black Lotus, his arrow, and the note he left at the scene appeared as a 3D hologram. The note reads, "I warn the dogs of the Monster King." A number of heroes showed interest in Black Lotus' handwriting. It was so beautiful that Yi Long-ha and Nicholas couldn't hold back their exclamations. Monster King is most likely referring to Orden. Black Lotus is saying Yoon Young-hwa received bribes from him. Pak Han-ho immediately pulled up a video recording of Yoon Young-hwa's interrogation. "Where did you get all the blood diamonds?" "I don't know." "Even though they were found in your safe."
I don't know. Why are you interrogating me? I'm the victim, you hear me? The victim of an assault. I only came here because you promised to fix my body. I won't stand to be treated this way. What an annoying old geezer, Aileen said, tapping on her desk. He obviously took bribes from Orden. Blood diamonds without any identification number and, what was it? There was one more thing. Park Han-ho said, sorcery mask. Yeah, that. It's an artifact only found in Africa, used to cast hypnosis and aphrodisiac spells. What exactly did this perverted old geezer need it for? Regardless, private prosecutions are against the law. Black Lotus's actions would still be problematic even if he was a hero. We'll need to adjust the bounty on his head. Then do it. Why are we even having a meeting if he's just going to do whatever he wants? Alien grumbled as she leaned back in her chair. Do whatever you want, I don't care. At her remark, Park Han-ho studied the faces of the other members. None of them seemed to object. It's settled then. Grade 1 Black Bounty, Wanted Criminal Black Lotus. Black Lotus's bounty increased, just like that. The change was meaningless since it wouldn't change the status quo, but there was nothing else they could do. The objective of this meeting was simply to review solutions presented by the lower echelon. A Grade 1 Black Bounty was only assigned to the most dangerous criminals who required a large number of heroes to capture. The next item on the agenda is Orden Assassination Team. This is today's most important topic. They were already moving on to the next item. This time, the topic was Assassination Team. In the face of recent events, different groups have suggested we should form a team against Orden. We plan to form at least 2 teams. Park Han-ho looked around the room. Do you have any heroes you'd like to recommend for the job? Of course, if none of them are strong enough, we'll simply form teams amongst ourselves. It seemed everyone had something to say this time. The heroes began to either recommend others or criticize the choices. Except Aileen. Aileen sat still, yawning and smacking her lips in boredom. Aileen? Chairman Park Han-ho turned to her. "Oh, what? And your opinion is?" "Well..." Aileen stroked her chin as she contemplated. A minute passed, and she suddenly jolted as though she thought of someone. Everyone's attention shifted to Aileen. "What? Did you think of someone?" Huh? That's..." Aileen twisted her body in embarrassment. The members of the Temple of Justice were certainly not used to seeing such a reaction from her. Curious, they focused even harder. At last, Aileen spoke. "Fenrir?" Her cheeks were slightly flushed. No one answered. There was no sign of support or opposition. Everyone simply stared at Aileen in silence. Fenrir. A mercenary who used a gun. His most famous nicknames include Lotus Killer, Monster Wolf, and so on. I'm kidding. It was a joke. She squeezed out laughter to fend off her embarrassment, but it only made things worse. The members either glared harder or let out pitiful sighs. So Aileen was left with no choice but to resort to anger. "Damn it, I said I was joking. I'm gonna pull your eyeballs out. Hey, what are you looking at, huh? I said, what are you looking at? Stop it right now." Aileen started to make a fuss. Even the Temple of Justice couldn't stand her notorious tantrums. Is what I said that absurd, huh? She was someone who even beat up Chuk Jung-gyung last time they fought on the 21st floor of the tower. Magic power surged from her, stronger than in the past, and her spirit speech began to shake the room. Until finally, the meeting came to a conclusion. With Aileen's strong recommendation, the name Fenrir was placed at the top of the recruit list for the Orden assassination team. 8F. Kreven. Meanwhile, 4 days after the Orden incident. "A letter? For me?" Jin Sa-hyuk looked at Rachel with a frown. "Yes. Someone has the nerve to send me a letter? Is it from a man?" "She barges into the commander's office only to talk about a letter?" Jin Sa-hyuk put on a surly freshen. "Yes, technically. I have no interest in some dull man who writes letters." "It's from Fenrir." Jin Sa-hyuk stared at Rachel in silence. Unable to grasp the meaning of Rachel's words, Jin Sa-hyuk sat in a daze. Only after some time did she finally speak. "For real?" "Yes." "The Kim Hajin?" "Yes. Why would Fenrir, send me a letter?" "I don't know." Rachel simply handed the envelope to Jin Sa-hyuk. "Please take it. I have to leave quickly because of the recent monster incident." Jin Sa-hyuk faked the look of discontent and looked down at the envelope before finally picking it up from Rachel's hand. "Well then?" She carefully opened the envelope to check its contents. "Hmm?" Jin Sa-hyuk read the letter in its entirety. "What the..." But there was nothing written on the letter. She even flipped it over and checked inside the envelope, but her efforts were fruitless. "What does it say?" Suddenly, a voice flowed into her ears. Startled, Jin Sa-hyuk raised her head. "Huh?" Rachel was staring at her. Jin Sa-hyuk assumed she had already left since she said she was busy. Huh? Well..." Jin Sa-hyuk couldn't tell Rachel the letter was blank, so she changed the topic. "Why are you still here? I thought you were in a hurry." "Pardon?" Is it about the movie?" "What?" Jin Sa-hyuk found her response strange. "Wait, are you jealous?" Rachel flinched slightly, but soon smiled as she normally did. "Certainly not." "Then why are you so eager to know?" In truth, it really could be jealousy. It's not exactly fun to introduce two friends and see them get to know each other closer than to you. Rachel couldn't describe her feelings in words, but she hurriedly turned back and grabbed the doorknob. "Then I'll be off." Rachel disappeared. What was that? Jin Sa-hyuk nonchalantly watched her leave and looked down at the letter again. She realized something the next moment. This is an answerable letter. The letter functioned just like a carrier pigeon. The two letters were linked, so any text on one would appear on the other. That crazy guy. But why did he send me a blank letter? What, he's too embarrassed to write first, so he's dumping it on me? Arrogant as always, that guy. Jin Sa-hyuk crumpled the letter into a ball and threw it in the trash can. Tok, 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 tok. Jin Sa-hyuk tapped on the desk with her finger and whistled.
Her gaze kept shifting toward the trash can. Resist. Must resist. No matter how much I want to ask him. Damn it. But she couldn't even hold out for 10 seconds. Jin Sa-hyuk picked up the letter from the trash can.
Chapter 254. England, Buckingham Palace. Rachel sighed as she gazed out at the ocean from England's coast. Entry to the beaches had recently been prohibited due to the surge of monsters entering England from the sea. Although the arrival of the Essence Barrier had prevented civilian casualties, the crisis was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. Dear my precious princess. Rachel stared at the letter in her hands and clenched her teeth. It was from England's greatest enemy, Lancaster. What's up? You don't look all that good. Ah-Hae-in walked over and asked. Rachel quickly hid the letter and turned to Ah-Hae-in, trying to appear nonchalant. It's nothing. Is Evandel doing okay? Really? But Evandel's summons are... Don't worry. Evandel's army, now numbering close to 3,000, was spread across Europe to help humanity. As a result, Evandel's creations were called mystical animals, referring to beasts that aided humans. I made Evandel create a chain of command in her army. For that, she needed an especially intelligent creation. Ah, I heard she made a monkey last time. A monkey? Wasn't enough. Ah-Hae-in smiled. So she made a unicorn. Pardon? A unicorn. Perhaps the most famous mystical animal in the world. A winged horse with a white horn. Evandel's unicorn is the commander in charge of her army. So you don't have to worry. Evandel is having fun by herself, not getting involved in anything complicated. Ah-Hae-in showed Rachel a crystal ball. Inside, Evandel was running around and having fun playing tag with Hyung. Rachel smiled as she always did when she saw Evandel. Then she suddenly remembered something important. Ah, Duchess Ah-Hae-in, the association sent us a message asking about the source of the mystical animals. I'd like to ask you for a... Don't trust the association. Ah-Hae-in answered immediately. Rachel tilted her head, and Ah-Hae-in looked back at her with a slightly serious expression. Orden's spies might be among them. Pardon? Seeing Rachel's confusion, Ah-Hae-in continued, her tone serious. Jinns are easy to spot, but humans persuaded by the Monster King are not. The Monster King has likely convinced many in the association to join his cause. How can that be? The association carries the will of hero Shinmyang Chalnim. It's hard to believe that. A servant of the Monster King also came to me. Ah-Hae-in faced Rachel. He knew what I wanted, what I lacked. He said he would give it to me. What do you mean? He said he would give me a body that could bear a child. I'm unable to have one because of a side effect of magic. Rachel didn't know how to respond, so she stayed silent. Ah-Hae-in gave her a small smile. But they didn't know me well enough. Even if I could have a child, what use would it be if the world belonged to monsters? Rachel nodded, her admiration for Ah-Hae-in growing even more. At the same time, she fixed her eyes on Evandel inside the crystal ball. Ah-Hae-in spoke again. Knowing the weakness of the target's heart, that must be Orden's gift. Gift? Yes. Who said only humans can have gifts? Ah, it's time for the news broadcast. Ah-Hae-in turned on the TV, and the 6 p.m. news came on. The Orton Kingdom has been found in Africa. While it stayed underground all this time, it was somehow able to move itself above ground in a single night. Experts... Before the reporter could finish, the screen flickered. The image turned gray, then black. While Rachel and Ah-Hae-in wondered what happened, a new image appeared on the screen. Greetings, humans! I am Orden, the Monster King. Rachel and Ah-Hae-in's faces immediately stiffened. On the screen, a huge giant sat on a throne. His appearance resembled a human's, but he was much larger, and his facial features were both human and non-human. His huge eyes flashed with a sharp, blade-like light. Today, I intend to give humanity a warning and an offer. Orden had easily hijacked the broadcast signal. All channels in England showed the same screen. Now, but the video was cut off shortly after that. Zzz. Static noises rang out, and Rachel and Hajin frowned. To figure out what the Monster King was planning, they focused on the screen. But Orden's voice did not return. Instead, a strange symbol appeared on the gray screen. To players of the Tower of Wish, this symbol was all too familiar. Hajin jumped in surprise. "Rachel, this symbol." "Yes, you're right." Rachel nodded. "A beautifully embroidered black lotus. It's Black Lotus." The moment Rachel said this, subtitles appeared beneath the symbol. "Humanity will not listen to the words of a mere monster. Monster, who dares to declare himself king and his foolish underlings, and the dogs who bit the meat offered by this fool, I will come to kill you all." After these 4 sentences appeared, the screen went black. Rachel and Hajin stood in silence for a moment, chills running down their spines. They clearly understood what had just happened. Holy, what was that? Orden and Black Lotus just... Soon, the original news broadcast returned. The reporter was in a daze, clearly shaken by the broadcast battle between the Monster King and Black Lotus. "Huh? We're back?" Startled, the reporter straightened up. Ahem. Our broadcast seems to have been hijacked." Seeing this, Hajin let out a small smile. "Looks like Black Lotus and the Monster King don't get along." Rachel nodded right away. As someone of her generation, she quickly went online. Looks like England isn't the only country that saw that. Pandemonium, Chameleon Troop's hideout. "Wow! How did you hack into the broadcast stream without even moving a finger?" I smiled at Jane's question. Orden's broadcast hijacking was part of the original story, which I had just stopped using my hacking ability. He shouldn't try to hijack broadcast streams now again that he knows it won't work. Orden tried to deliver a message to the whole world, but I shut him down completely. Of course, he might not give up, but I was in a much more advantageous position since I could counter-hack just by looking. There was a good reason for me to stop him. Orden was one of the few characters who could infuse magic power into his words. Although his words weren't as powerful as Eileen's, they would still be effective against defenseless civilians. "You're getting more popular and popular, Hajin Yu. Look, your name is trending again." Jane clasped her hands together and showed me a social media trending chart. 1. Black Lotus. 2. Orden. 3. Black Lotus versus Orden. Black Lotus and Orden's names were topping the trending chart. I glanced at my smartwatch. My SP had gone up by 407 points. Anyway, Jane, I massaged my eyes, which were sore from not blinking while hacking the broadcast stream. "Don't we have better artifacts?" The ones here are only presents, or offerings, I should say. The floor I was on was filled with artifacts, all given to us by Pandemonium's djinns. None of them are particularly useful. Is this normally like this?
Yep. It was then. Ding! The elevator stopped on our floor, and 2 members of the Chameleon Troop appeared. "Oh, hey, Arashi." Hiranu Arashi, the seat of brown. Arashi was a woman with long hair who liked to wear silk robes. She walked past Jane without saying anything. I let her be and turned my gaze to the giant who came with her. "Chak Jungyang, I heard you lost to Eileen." What? Chak Jungyang immediately let out a roar. The building shook slightly, and Jane furrowed her brows. "You crazy buffoon." "Lost? Why, who lost? Who told you that?" "Okay." Chak Jungyang began to make excuses. "I was about to win. I only had to punch her one last time. I was this close to doing it, but she looked too much like a kid up front. Who's gonna believe she's an adult? Not me, that's for sure. I missed my timing to hit her because of it, and that wench used this opening to..." I ignored his flurry of words and turned to Jane. "So, we don't have better artifacts? We have to go meet Wicked soon." The strongest member of the 9 Evils, Wicked, had requested to meet the Chameleon Troop. The goal of the meeting was to discuss assassinating Orden. Now, even djinns were planning to form an assassination team. For this specific task, djinns were more trustworthy than heroes. Orden's persuasion didn't work on djinns who had already sold their souls to devils.
Boss keeps all the good ones to herself. Oh, I see. She doesn't want to give any to me, so you should go ask her. Okay. I'll take it from her and give some to you too. To effectively use my special skill, Black Enchant, I needed pinnacle-grade artifacts. Otherwise, I could just use items I crafted. Okay, good luck. I'll be cheering for you. I began to walk over to Boss's room. Pandemonium, Fallen Ghost Rank Gladiator's waiting room. Meanwhile, Jin Sa-hyuk returned to her home. Technically, it wasn't her home, but Pandemonium's fighting arena. Since she never bought a house, she had no other choice. Lord Jin Sa-hyuk, Lord Jin Sa-hyuk, will you begin fighting in the arena again? An employee of the fighting arena followed after her. Jin Sa-hyuk unpacked without answering. She didn't carry much, only effective goods she brought from the tower. Lord Jin Sa-hyuk, can we schedule a fight for you? A leather armor giving off a cold, dark blue light, and a coat made from a special fabric enchanted with magic. The two pieces of equipment were level 8 deep dark leather armor, go back Hisht in brackets J Red Order, and level 8 battle armor coat in brackets J Red Order. She had no clue what the words in parentheses meant, but level 8 items were the highest level items that players can turn into effective goods, making them among the best items brought outside the tower. She had spent 3 months of her salary to purchase them from the auction house. Lord Sa-hyuk? Jeez. Jin Sa-hyuk glared at the arena employee before changing her clothes. Stop bothering me. Do you want to die? No, not at all. Tsk. Jin Sa-hyuk furrowed her brows and shooed him away. All right, do whatever you want, but the opponent better be interesting. Yes, thank you. Only then did the employee run out with a smile. Oh, these worms. From the looks of it, the fighting arena business wasn't going well. It wasn't surprising, considering Pandemonium was now split between Satan's servants and the Chameleon Troupe. Jin Sa-hyuk was not happy about her hobby being disturbed. Jin Sa-hyuk took off her clothes and changed into her armor. The combination of the leather armor and the coat was more than satisfactory. Jin Sa-hyuk smiled and nodded. Knock knock. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. Since when was the Fallen Ghost Rank waiting room so noisy? Jin Sa-hyuk felt her stomach boil with annoyance as she opened the door. Dum! Who the hell are you? Beyond the door was a strange-looking creature. It was a skeleton, wearing a robe to disguise its non-human appearance. He seemed to be a lich. Jin Sa-hyuk stared at his glowing eyes and smirked. You're here for revenge? Not at all. The lich's voice echoed as though they were in a cave. Then why are you here? You came to die, too? I am here to pass on my king's message. He wishes to make a trade with you. Trade? Yes. This time, Jin Sa-hyuk laughed out loud. Interesting lot, aren't you? Didn't I say I didn't want to talk to mere beasts? The lich didn't show any sign of displeasure at Jin Sa-hyuk's provocation. He seemed incapable of it in the first place. The lich continued. The king's message is as follows. I will let you return to your home world. What? In that instant, the atmosphere changed. Sharp magic power surged from Jin Sa-hyuk. Jin Sa-hyuk grabbed the lich by the collar of his robe and threw him into the room. Doom! The lich let out an odd scream as he flew through the air and struck the wall. Jin Sa-hyuk ran up to the lich and stepped on his neck. How do you know about that? Do not underestimate the memory of monsters. There are monsters who remember your home world. What? Monsters are not the enemy of humanity. The king wants to open people's eyes. Humans should join hands with us to defeat the devil. Jin Sa-hyuk loosened her grip. It seemed worth hearing him out. Africa contains a fragment of the continent you once lived in. Furthermore,
Some of the monsters that gained intelligence came over from that continent. The king wishes to be with you." The Lich took out a small crystal from his pocket. It was a blue crystal that looked like a tower crystal. "This is his sign of goodwill." Goodwill? Jin Sa-hyuk stared at the item. As someone who hated being scammed, she had learned the appraisal skill from the Tower of Wish. Continental fragment. You can use this fragment to return to the recorded past, Akatrina, during the time of Continental Year 555. What? I can go back to Akatrina? Yes, but you cannot stay there forever. This is only a recorded past. Changing the past does not change the future. You will only be experiencing the world of the past. The Lich explained, and Jin Sa-hyuk's excitement subsided. Then what use is it? I don't need it. Jin Sa-hyuk clicked his tongue and tried to throw the crystal. However, his hand refused to let go. Do you really not need it? The Lich stared at Jin Sa-hyuk with a soft smile. You can take it. It is a gift from the king. There is no need to pay anything, and you do not need to become our ally either. It is just a token of goodwill. The blue crystal glowed with a silvery light. Returning to Akatrina, Jin Sa-hyuk stared at the crystal for a long time before tightening her grip on it. Great decision. The Lich got up with a smile. Then I will be off. Feel free to visit us if you change your mind. The Lich slowly backed out of the room. However, Jin Sa-hyuk still had one question. Wait. Yes. Can this bring other people with me? The Lich nodded. If you'd like. The power of the crystal is boundless. Is that so? Jin Sa-hyuk grinned. That's good.
Then, in the next moment, magic power shot out from her hand toward the Lich. It spread out like a spiderweb, cutting the Lich apart into 5 pieces. A dark night. I came back home for the first time in a long while. Now that Evandel had fallen asleep, I sat on the couch, contemplating my next gift. Buster Call. Using Stigma's magic power, summoned from the Tower of Wish vassals who swore loyalty to Kim Hajin or his possessions. Buster Call. Inspired by a manhwa I used to enjoy, I came up with this gift to summon my aides and Jenka Lope's vessel from the Tower of Wish. With this, I would be able to deploy the 16th floor's NPCs as well as my almighty battleship. There was just one problem. You do not have enough SP. You need a total of 30,000 SP. The SP I had was nowhere close to enough. It was the same no matter how many restrictions I put on it. It should go down once Suho clears the tower. I speculated that it was probably because the Tower of Wish hadn't fallen. Once Kim Suho killed the Demon King, the tower's outer shell would fall, and the tower would meld with the outside world. The required SP should drastically decrease then. Of course, I predicted I would still need at least 5,000 SP. Even if the tower's outer shell fell, the world inside and outside the tower were vastly different. To materialize something from the tower, a huge amount of energy would be needed. What to do? Should I go with the other gift I thought of before, or should I wait a bit more and go with Buster Call? As I was contemplating, the sound of words being written rang out. I turned my head and saw words being written on the communication letter I gave to Jin Sa-hyuk. Oh, I didn't think she would write back so quickly. I looked at what she wrote. I am also participating in Pandemonium's Orden assassination team. Let's meet and settle this once and for all.
Chapter 255 16F Genklop is vessel. It had been a while since I last visited the vessel. I was here to attend a meeting with Wicked for the expedition team organized by the Jinns against Orden. The Tower of Wish was the perfect place for 2 opposing parties to meet, since everyone resurrected after death here. There are a lot of people here. Yeah. Many things had changed in the 6 months since my last visit. For starters, the entrance inspection was now stricter and more high-tech than most airports. Security guards in power armor were all at least level 16. It's changed a lot. It's mine, but it doesn't feel like it. Once again, greed stirred inside me. I could take this vessel outside simply by awakening a new gift. You're right, so much has changed since last time. I could get lost here now. What do we do from here to get to the 17th floor? There's a separate transport ship. You just have to pay TP to go up. And don't even think about doing anything stupid on the 16th floor. There's a PK ban here, and almost all kinds of fighting are prohibited. Hotels and restaurants are concentrated in Area 3, so try going there. Ah, I see. Thank you. And if you want to get stronger, visit the arena and the dungeon. You can practice against NPC guards in the arena, and the dungeon is located at the lowest level. Kim Young-jin, Essence of the Straits Tower of Wish supervisor, and his group of rookies caught my eye. Actually, it might be wrong to call players who managed to climb up to the 16th floor rookies. Anyway, while watching them, I walked past the long line of players waiting to check in. Look, they're cutting! No cutting in line! Hey, what are you doing? All right, please be quiet. A few players snarled at us, but a security guard stopped them. We entered the ship accompanied by the guards. By the way, Hajin, I heard the Hero Association also tried to make a bargain with you. Oh yeah, that happened. I wasn't sure who recommended me, but the Hero Association did try to recruit me. Of course, I had no intention of joining them. Rather, I planned to infiltrate the Tower of Heroes, the home of the association, while they were preoccupied with Orden, to save a young child who was being exploited there. More importantly, boss, what do you think of my plan? A young child with the authority of healing was currently being abused in the Tower of Heroes. The child was 7 years old, 7 or 8 years ago, so she was probably a teenager now. It likely will be difficult. We have to rescue that girl. 8 years ago, the upper echelon of the association was still in good health, and they raised the child with utmost care. However, things have changed. Now they were exploiting the child only to satisfy their selfish desire to overcome aging. But Jane, Chuk Jung-young, and Jin Yo-han seem to want to do it. How about you, boss? This work had to be done since the girl played a major role in the final half of the story. But now that the greed of those in power has become much larger than in the original story, it is highly likely that the child will not survive until then if we continue to allow her to be exploited. Boss stared at me in brief silence. I'll do as you please. I smiled in relief. Thank you. You're welcome. We exchanged a warm smile. Then we walked down the street, glancing over the scenery which had clearly changed a lot. Soon we arrived at the meeting place. It was a large room in a hotel I had never heard of. It looked like the hotel was built in my honor, as evidenced by its name, Haj Rotel? A large round table stood at the center of the room. We sat in whatever chair was available, put on our hoods, and waited for the Jins to arrive. Hajin, you stay quiet. Huh? Oh, okay. Boss and I sat absent-mindedly. Boss threw a quick glance at me, then fixed her gaze in the air before rolling her eyes up and down. She was reading a Tower Read novelful. I got lost in thought. Suddenly, a question crossed my mind. What is Che Na-yoon doing right now? I realized this not too late. If I'm curious, I could always see for myself. I sent a thought to Spartan. Go find Che Na-yoon in the Himalayas and then share your vision with me. As soon as I closed my eyes, the view of a snow-covered mountain stretched out in front of me. Che Na-yoon was at an inn located in the middle of the mountain. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she read a letter in her hands. Oh, thank God. I'm glad. I'm so glad. It seemed the letter was from Yu Yeon-ha. She held the letter in her arms while murmuring countless thanks. I could roughly make out the contents of the letter. Though she seemed to have lost a bit of weight from recent hardships, she seemed genuinely happy now. Seeing her like that made me feel a little melancholy. She was the first person in this world to express her feelings for me. I never forgot the vivid, heartwarming affection she gave me. I still didn't know what she saw in a man like me. "Hey, Nayun, what are you doing there? Wait, are you crying?" At that moment, someone came up to Che Nayun. I hadn't expected to see him there. The only named character in the Himalayas should have been Heinkus. "I'm not crying. What do you mean I'm crying? More importantly, aren't you going back to Mount Baekdu, Master?" "Wolf of Valhalla, the Master rank hero you see Hook?" He frowned at Che Nayun. "How can I leave when that old geezer is trying to steal my disciple from me?" "What anchovy is calling me an old geezer?" I watched the interesting turn of events with anticipation. "Hello!" Suddenly, the door of the room we were in burst open and a huge, upbeat cry rang out. We both stopped what we were doing and looked over. Wicked, who recently rose to the top of the hierarchy among the 9 evils, was making an entrance into the room. She approached us with steps full of confidence. "Nice to meet you. I'm Wicked. Ha Yan Hee." Though her name and appearance were too young to be called Wicked, Boss and I shook her hand in turn. Wicked's underlings rushed in and stood on either side of the room. "Now, let us start the meeting. Have a ha 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 ha," Wicked said and laughed heroically. Vast Expanse's cave. Meanwhile, in a cave home to Vast Expanse and his hunters, the coziness of which was superior to most towns, the leaders of 2 groups were having a conversation. "Me? Yes, the association would like for you to join the Orden assassination team. Vast Expanse's Yun Kwang Wan, Essence of the Straits Yu Ji Noon." Yu Jin Noon looked into Vast Expanse's eyes calmly. His eyes, infused with azure magic power, shone brightly from a distance. His thick beard and his long hair made him look rather like a sage or a hermit. Vast Expanse have aged elegantly. "If you'd like to recruit me, you'll need at least tens of billions of won. That is a cheap price considering we expected hundreds of billions of won." Yujin Noon replied with composure.
Also, what use is money if you lose all of your land to monsters? At Yu Junwang's words, Vast Expanse smiled. "Say, what do I look like to you? Why do you assume the association is willing to pay such a high price to hire me?" "That's a strange question. Are you not the immeasurably strong Vast Expanse?" Vast Expanse slowly shook his head. "No, I only see myself as an old man." "Strange. Yu Si-hyuk is merely 8 years younger than me, yet he looks your age." Sentiments were embedded in his voice. Without any words, Yujin Wang simply waited for Vast Expanse to continue. "That is probably the normal rate of aging for a superhuman who has mastered the ways of magic power, at least until he's 70. Vast Expanse stroked his beard. The hand that patted the beard was covered in age spots. "But not for me. My side effect is growing old." Side effects of gifts. Of course, they were very rare these days, with every hero being systematically managed. However, side effects were common among heroes of the past who had to fight day after day without proper management. Yujin Wang asked, trying to divert his eyes away from the wrinkles on Vast Expanse's face. "Then what is it that you want?" "I heard the association has custody of a child with the authority of healing." "Yes, that's right." Yujin Wang nodded. "There was a girl with the authority of healing at the Tower of the Heroes. Her authority could cure all illnesses and injuries except for death. But the misuse of her power at a young age could potentially double the side effects. So the association had vowed to protect the child and promised her a peaceful childhood. However, these days, high-ranking officials of the association had begun to take advantage of the child. She was being used as a tool to extend their lifespans. I heard that she can even reverse aging." Vast Expanse spoke, a streak of anticipation flickering in his eyes. "Reversing the aging process is, in some ways, putting off death. I'm aware, but
Even now, she's being used to extend the lifespans of several political figures. Now, is that the right thing to do? Yu Jinwang did not answer. Just recently, the child had used her power to heal the scars left on Cheju Cho's body by the devil, but everyone would understand that healing Cheju Cho was for the public good. Don't you know that the association is rotting away? I can assure you that some heroes have already switched sides, allured by Orden's proposal. Orden did come to me once. He said he would offer me youth, but I declined. Vast Expanse's eyes arched into a gentle smile. The smile was a mix of solid self-esteem, unique to a man who believed in himself, and revulsion directed at the others. I think there are 10 evils in this world, not 9. People say these days that wicked triumphs over all others, but my opinion is different. The worst of the 10 evils is unsightliness. It's the association. In a flash, Yu Jinwang's expression turned into a frown. You, how could you say such a thing? The 7 chairmen of the association are rotting away while hiding under the light of Shinmyong Chol's achievements. Do not trust those codgers who are tarnishing the name of the great hero. They must be dragged down from their seats. Vast Expanse spoke solemnly. Yu Jinwang simply let out a sigh. Vast Expanse and Shinmyong Cho. Even Yu Jinwang wasn't aware of the relationship between them. All he knew was that Shinmyong Cho was the revered hero of all heroes who had been active since Outcall, and that Vast Expanse was a latecomer who admired Shinmyong Cho. Vast Expanse continued, "Give me the girl. I will take care of her. I do not give away what's mine, nor do I let my possessions break. I won't lay a finger on the child until her authority has matured. Even if I wanted to, he's impossible to persuade," Yu Jinwang thought as he murmured dejectedly. One of the biggest sponsors of the association is Cheju Cho. Cheju Cho, the name was feared by both humans and Dijins alike. Cheju Cho's influence was stronger now than ever. Nevertheless, Vast Expanse gave a rather leisurely laugh. Yu Jinwang felt envious at the words that flowed out of Vast Expanse's mouth the next moment, amidst the laughter. "I am not afraid of Cheju Cho. Haven't I told you that there is only one thing that I fear? It is getting old." England, London. Evacuation and mobilization orders were issued throughout England as oceanic monsters started to rampage. Citizens were urged to evacuate inland, and heroes and guilds were ordered to gather at the shore. Rachel, the leader of the English Royal Court Guild, arrived at the English Channel with her guild members. "What's the situation?" Government officials answered Rachel gravely. "Sea monsters are going on a rampage across the English Channel. Although we have the assistance of mystical animals, barriers and the breakwater won't last long." The Thames River, which ran through the heart of London, was safe thanks to Essence Barrier, but the seaside, where bigger and higher-ranked monsters are rampaging, was helpless. An even bigger problem was Ireland. Ireland had already abandoned its capital, Dublin. Confirmed monsters are multiple intermediate rank grade 1 Krentios, 3 high intermediate rank grade 8 Sirens, high intermediate rank grade 5 Crassius Catfish, high intermediate rank grade 1 Kraken. One of the officials was reporting when suddenly, "Coo!" Far away, a giant catfish created a waterspout over the surface of the sea. A whirlpool combined with violent currents and massive magic power transformed into a typhoon that rushed inland. Rachel drew her sword in the face of the natural disaster created by a monster. A water elemental appeared from the fairy sword Galatan. "Wurtortle, stop it!" The water elemental dove into the sea and formed a new current. This current rotated in the direction opposite of the typhoon created by the catfish. It bounced the typhoon upward into the sky, offsetting it with ordinary rain clouds. Sunshine, earth, fiery! However, merely stopping its attacks wasn't enough. Only by killing the monster could they put an end to this struggle for good. Rachel called for her elementals. Now fully grown, they stood sternly and glared imposingly across the sea. Everyone, please get ready. Rachel wanted to create an environment suitable for the assembled heroes. She planned to order Wurturtle to block the flow of currents, Sunshine and Earth to form artificial land, and Fiery to partially evaporate the seawater to expose sea monsters lurking at the bottom of the sea to the heroes and their arrows, spears, swords, and cannonballs. Wurturtle. However, there was no need for Rachel's elementals to come into play. Chua!
From somewhere far away, a giant weapon flew in. Surprised by its power, which was even greater than its overwhelming speed, all heroes looked back in a daze. A countless number of weapons flew through the sky. They crushed the horde of sea monsters with ease. Monsters could not escape from this attack even by hiding underwater. The weapons, composed of enormous magic power, easily plowed through the seawater and cut off the heads of the sea monsters. Quack! The weapons continued to rain down. Who in the world could possibly cast an attack of this level as easily as a flick of a finger? Rachel looked back, confused and astonished. Ah! As expected, Shinjahuk was there. With her arms folded, Shinjahuk was releasing weapons filled with magic power, just as she did in Krivan. Rachel wasn't sure why she came here all of a sudden. Nevertheless, Shinjahuk was a great addition to the Allied force. Rachel shouted loudly, "Aim for the monsters!" Heroes, encouraged by the remarkable strength of their ally, returned a boisterous roar, and Rachel did what she had planned to do with her elementals. "The water is gone! Leader dragged to sea! Attack the sea monsters on shore! Die, you monsters, die!" 3 hours after the fierce battle, Rachel greeted Shinjahuk at the vice-leader office of the English Royal Court Guild. Shinjahuk sat in front of Rachel and looked around. The frugal yet elegant interior seemed to reflect the nature of its owner. Rachel bowed to Shinjahuk first. "Thank you for coming all the way to England, even though I haven't asked for—" "Enough of that." Shinjahuk interrupted Rachel and leaned forward. In that posture, she looked straight at Rachel. It was an unexpected eye contact. When Rachel tilted her head in confusion, Shinjahuk smiled and continued. "Remember that letter you gave me last time?" Yes?" Rachel finally had a rough idea of where this conversation was going. Shinjahuk probably wanted her advice regarding Kim Hajin. It was just that, but Rachel felt uneasy as if a small fire had started in her stomach. Rachel clenched the hands on her knees into fists. Shinjahuk took a glance at them and said calmly, "Thanks to you, I've arranged to meet with him." "Pardon?" At that moment, Rachel's shoulders trembled slightly. Meet him? You're meeting him?" "Yes, I think I'll see him within a month. Anyways," Shinjahuk continued, watching the dazed Rachel in amusement. "What does Kim Hajin like? I'd like to prepare a gift." This was obviously intended to poke fun at Rachel, and it worked well. Confused, she couldn't even look at Shinjahuk's face properly. Her wriggling fingers and aimlessly wandering eyes were almost too pitiful. I'm not sure." Judging by that, I guess you aren't very close to—" Rachel cut in before Shinjahuk could finish her sentence. She herself did not know just where this impatience had come from. "Book! He likes books." "Books?" Shinjahuk frowned. She found it hard to believe that there was a man who loved books. "Yes, you probably don't know this, but Hajin C was always at the top of class in theory at Cube." Really? Is that good?" "It's not just good, it's incredible." Rachel continued with a stern expression. One professor in particular always praised him, saying Hajin C could have won a Nobel Prize if he only focused on theory. This professor was also a Nobel laureate himself. Yeah, Nobel Prize, you say. Anyways, I get it, thanks. You've been a great help." That was all she needed. In the first place, the reason she came all the way here was to observe how this elegant princess would react to her provocation. Right now, her life was full of boredom, and she needed a little entertainment.
However, when Shinja-huk turned back, she heard Rachel's voice from behind. "Miss Shinja-huk." "Hmm?" Shinja-huk turned to Rachel again. Suddenly, Rachel's face had become very serious. Her expression was stiff, and she was biting her lips. At that sight, Shinja-huk almost broke into a burst of laughter, but she managed to hold herself back. "Since you're being introduced to him as an acquaintance of mine, please don't get too comfortable with him. My country considers Kim Hajin a top priority in diplomacy. Hajin is the technical advisor at Essential Dynamics and Geronimo's." Rachel's polite yet strict warning went on. "Fenrir has a close relationship with our government." Okay, I get it." Shinja-huk cut her off and turned around. She could feel Rachel's burning gaze land on the back of her head. She's pretty fun to tease. "I'm leaving." This whole meeting was a complete waste of time, but Shinja-huk felt it was worth it as Rachel had shown her such a satisfying response. Now in a much better mood than before, Shinja-huk left Rachel's office with light steps.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.